I wanted to make this video in honor of my dad. On July 25th at approximately 2:06 my time, which is in Arizona, I received a phone call from my mom, who was extremely distraught, and I couldn't understand what she was saying. There was a police officer there who handed me the telephone and proceeded to tell me that my father had suffered a massive heart attack in the home and had seemingly passed away. That they were rushing him to the hospital, and that which hospital it was, and to tell me in case I wanted to go down to see him. I wasn't able to go down because I'm in Arizona and this was in Canada. I called about a half an hour later to my sister's cell phone, hoping that she would answer it in the hospital and that we would have some word on what was happening with my dad. But I spoke to my mom, who was at home, and she let me know that my dad had passed away, that he actually had died in the home in her arms, and it was extremely sudden, and it was not what we were expecting. It's been about a month and a half now since Dad went home, and it's still really difficult. A lot of times I think I dissociate, and in that, not that I don't know that it's real, but it doesn't feel real, and it feels like I'm in a nightmare, and I just want to wake up and everything's okay. I'm doing this video not because I want to talk about me and my feelings and my experience with all of this. I want to talk about my dad, and I want to honor him. My dad lived an absolutely extraordinary life. He was amazing. The life he lived, the people he met, the things he did is just amazing. And I wanted to do a little bit of a video here to, I guess, introduce you to my dad and give him that honor and that tribute, because he deserved it, and he deserved for the world to know who he was. He was such a humble man. He was such a quiet man, but yet he moved mountains. The things he did were incredible. He saved a multi-billion-dollar company, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, in the 1980s. And I think he needs to have recognition. I know he needs to have recognition for so much. My dad was born in 1922 on a train in no man's land between Russia and China. My dad's heritage is Turkish, Chinese, Uyghur, Russian. He was a real mixture. From that region, the Uyghur region in China, it is very mixed. He was Muslim, and his grandfather was one of the last warlords of China, and he had disowned all of his other sons, and my grandfather, who would have been the rightful heir to my great-grandfather's properties and title, lands, everything, he was an academic and he was a businessman, and he did not really have any interest. So when my dad was born, my great-grandfather had told my grandfather that he wanted to raise my father as his son and have him be the rightful heir. And the warlord system was that of a kingdom, and my dad was raised as a prince. My dad was taken from his mother after he was born, and in a way you could say he was kidnapped from her and taken to the province and to my great-grandfather, who raised him as a prince and taught him the principles of Islam and being a warlord and learning how to fight. And when my father was 3 years old, he often told me of this recollection that he had, that he was out in the fields and he was riding his favorite water buffalo, and that's what he used to ride because he was too young for a horse, but he used to ride a water buffalo. And he was out in the fields and he was having fun, and of course he always had a guard with him. And on this particular day, the guard was alert. There were several guards, and they were alerted to the fact that there was a rider coming. And of course they gathered around him because in the warlord's generations, I guess, it was feudal. It was a feudal organization. So there was often times where family members were murdered, and wars were waged against warlords for taking over the lands and claiming title. And so it happened to be my great-grandfather's henchman, or right-hand man, if you will, coming to tell them that my great-grandfather had passed away and that my father was now the Khan. He was now the ruler. And that evening, my great-grandfather had been ill for a little while, and so word had been sent to all the brothers and of course the cousins, and that he was on his last legs and to basically get ready to come for the funeral. And so my grandfather was already en route to the Xinjiang province, and he ended up kidnapping my father and taking him by horseback over the mountain ranges, and eventually took him to Tingxing, where my grandmother was, and where they were residing. And the reason why he had to kidnap him was, as I mentioned, it was a feudal system. All the uncles and the cousins were coming to kill my dad because he's now the new warlord, and so they were going to now take over his title by killing him. And it's much easier to kill a 3-year-old than it is a grown man. So Dad grew up in Tingxing in China, and as a young man, when the Japanese were occupying China, my dad became a member